I am going to talk about shame and surrender. I had to have my shoulder replaced. The recovery from that has been incredibly slow. God made me, and then God had me go through all of everything I've been through to be who I am now. And sometimes I kind of realize that. And a lot of people think that if you're smart, that you think you're awesome or something. But if you are smart, then you're just smart. And you may or may not be any kind of other way. So I was watching a video, a Christian video, talking about anger. And I said to my wife, I don't really get angry at anybody. I don't have a problem with anger, really at all, except at myself. And in that department, it's actually way worse. Last night, we had a surprise party for my son and our pastor. Their birthdays are both tomorrow, the 14th. And I found myself at a certain point going outside, and I walked all the way down the very long driveway that we have at our church. And I was kind of talking to myself, kind of talking trash at myself. It feels like I don't like people. It feels like I don't like to be around people, but it's always because I know that people don't like me. And I don't want to burden decided to issues, but record it because I don't usually think to record when I'm in that type of place. But it's a very hopeless, it's not that I don't want to be around people. It's that I don't want people to be around me. I don't want to be a burden, my problems emotionally. I don't usually burden people with stuff, but when you can't think of anything other than how much you hate yourself, it's kind of hard to act normal in social setting. So I recorded it partly because when I hit record and started saying the same things, they didn't feel the same. It was like there was somebody watching, and it's not that I couldn't say the same thing. I didn't feel the same way. So it's a very isolated, isolatory, it feeds on itself. It makes me feel like I need to isolate, and then being isolated makes me feel that way even more. At this point in my life, I am so angry at myself because I feel like I should be in a much more secure place. I feel like I should have made more progress and money and success. I don't think of it relatively. I compare it to what it should be. And the first problem with that is that I don't really even necessarily know what it should be. I guess on the one hand, I'm trying to, it seems to be the stumbling block that I have. It's pretty easy for me to submit to God because I've been brought all the way to the bottom of existing, where, as bad as it, there were a long time where I wanted to die, drugs and stupidity and selfishness and legal problems, and just everything as gone as everything could be. So in that way, it's a little easier for me. But in the not hating myself way, it's very, very hard. And I find that I don't know if self-hate, shame, depression, they say depression is anger turned on yourself. All these things aren't all that uncommon. I mean, a lot of people are depressed, and when I was clinically depressed, like with no motivation and that kind of thing, it was because, I mean, in a way I gave up, and I didn't think that I was mad at myself. But the kind of depression that I have now, which is not all the time, there are times where I feel pretty, normal, whatever. I'm very different than most people. I mean, to be neurodivergent in the ways that I am is very isolating. I guess I would say I'm an introvert. I don't know. When I'm around the right people, I really can be quite outgoing. But the introvert part, the way I've always described that is if I'm in a group of like 6 people, my brain, without me trying to do it, is seeing the conversation that's happening from all 6 people's points of view. And it's just a lot to, like, my brain just would work overtime at, and I don't know, it almost sometimes made me feel fraudulent. Like, well, if I'm worrying about what they're thinking, then, and it's not a trying to be a certain way kind of thing. The acid and all the stuff that I have done, mostly the acid though, has made my brain, and I was already, different. When I was little, they called it gifted. I definitely was ADD, or ADHD. I was all over the place, into everything all the time, asking thousands of questions. I do have a quite high IQ, and that's been that way since I was little. But when the acid thing happened, and it unlocked all the math, as I've explained in multiple videos, and I went from failing calculus for non-engineers to being able to change my major to math and physics and make dean's list for 6 semesters in a row without really trying very hard. That's the briefest explanation of how crazy it was. So it did that, but it did some stuff to my vision, but mostly it was my awareness, like my actual perception of being alive, that changed so much. It made me aware of everything, kind of. I don't know another way to say it. Not literally everything all the time, but like when my son tries to startle me, my brain is able to kind of go back half a second and then not react. So I basically don't really startle, because it feels like I'm literally going backwards in time and then doing it again. It's just a lot of weird stuff like that. So it's very hard to find any person that has any idea what it's like to be me. My wife's neurodivergent, and she gets it to a certain degree. My son is a lot like me and gets it to a lot of degrees. But compared to just, some random faceless average person, whatever that even means, neurotypical, I guess, would be the main divider. It's basically, I don't even think I'd be able to explain it, like over the course of days, where it would make sense. But obviously, when you talk to most people, you don't have days, and the goal isn't for you to explain how you are and them to understand. So, people expect you to be in a certain range in social situations. And a lot of times I'm in my head thinking about so much stuff that I don't even realize I'm not participating. Then a lot of other times I'm thinking about certain things, and I'm trying to participate, and it's people always, when I get to know somebody well, they always say, we thought that you just like were really shy or didn't want to be around people, or it's always something in that general area as far as what people think I was. And sometimes even like that I thought I was better than people, so I didn't interact with them. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I think I'm worse than everybody. So that's not what it is. I'm good at some things and I am smart. And a lot of people think that if you're smart, that you think you're awesome or something. But if you are smart, then you're just smart. And like, you may or may not be any kind of other way. So, I try to, there was a period of time, I even talked about this last night, where I basically said, okay, I'm going to stop trying to participate. I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be me. And I'm not even going to worry about what that means. And if I'm somewhere and I don't talk for half an hour and there's a bunch of people around me talking and I look weird, then whatever, who cares? And I did try that. And it seemed like all that happened would be that I would participate less. And see, that's the thing. Like, I don't like the consequences of participating less. Then later, people don't think of you when when they think of a group of people, you're kind of just left out because you don't really participate. You're not really there. And that's just the most basic example. I mean, there's all kinds of, there would be times my wife would assume I would want to do certain things because she would assume that I wouldn't want to be around people, type of thing. She used to think that, like if we went to church and she started talking to somebody and I was like off by myself, that she had to come and like make sure that I was all right. And it's not, it's not that bad. But I mean, I guess sometimes it kind of is. But the shame of all of that, and I went way more into that than I meant to, but the shame of just all of that it's overwhelming. I mean, I'm trying really hard to get to know God by being in the Bible, like as much as possible. I'm trying to, anytime I have a bad thought, to immediately go to some kind of either pray or, talking to God or thinking something positive, like immediately. I try not to dwell on negative thoughts. I mean, I'm doing all of these things and I think I'm actually doing most of them pretty well. And I do see a day where I don't hate myself. I see it possible, whereas I didn't pretty recently. But I don't understand how I can, I mean, if I was just to say, oh yeah, everything that has happened, it doesn't matter somehow. For example, if we went into the ministry that we're trying to start and like helped a bunch of people, and a lot of the reason was because I had done so many bad things, then I would feel like, okay, this has some kind of purpose, which is how I feel when I'm making videos about it. It's trying to help people. But especially as of now, where video views are like incredibly low, which, I'm not like surprised by that or angry about it or anything. It's just, I don't have that effect to say it was actually for something yet. And I would think that I would be able to understand, okay, so in 5 years, if I feel like that, all the suffering from here to now, because I'm hating myself, will all be not only pointless, but wrong. It should not have happened. The thing that makes me mad is thinking about the actual things that I did and the things I have missed out on because of it and the consequences that existed because of it. I can't seem to just, pick either now or a potential time in the future or anything like that and say, this reality is enough, or, it's, even if I died right now, would that just mean my whole life was just a total waste? And I mean, in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like that, but it obviously wasn't. I mean, I have an amazing wife and son, so I wouldn't have them if I hadn't have done it the way I did. I think the bottom line comes down to there are certain times where the actual brain chemistry changes. And when that happens, and I start thinking the bad things or thinking about the bad things that I think, it just becomes a reinforced loop, and it kind of magnifies itself until I can somehow get out of it, which is why I'm trying all those little things. There are a lot of things that I am doing differently and a lot of things that I'm doing pretty well and that are good. My brain will pick a certain thing, like, my shoulder. I had to have my shoulder replaced. The recovery from that has been incredibly slow and is not where it should be, making me feel kind of disabled. I mean, I can't use my right arm normally. If I play guitar for a little while, it's not that it starts to hurt, it's that I start to not be able to use it for other things, because of it's like a sore hurt where it just stops kind of working. So I have a budget of stuff I can do with it every day. And I love guitar and piano and writing and a bunch of other things that I have to do only a limited amount. So it makes you feel like not a whole person anybody out there that, if you think you understand, like, tie your right arm to your belt or belt loop or waist or whatever, just for like an hour, and see how many things are incredibly and this is my dominant hand, so it obviously makes it worse. And not to mention that it's so bad because at the job I was working at, they started putting me on multiple positions when people wouldn't show up. And they had known my shoulder was bad, moved me off of where I started so that I'd be able to keep working there because I was a very good worker. And then when people wouldn't be there, they'd like fill me in for them, knowing that, because I would tell them that, like, it'd be overhead pull down work or way out in front work or really heavy stuff or whatever. And I would tell them, like, this is very bad for my shoulder. And I, like 7 nights in a row, I told them, if you keep putting me on these positions, I am going to end up having to go to I had to miss work. Like, I used 3 vacation days to rest my arm for a day so I could go back and have it destroyed again. So after like 10 days of that, I had to go to the doctor because it was so incredibly, it was really bad. It was in so many ways bad. But she told me, you shouldn't have been working, like, you shouldn't even been doing that stuff. And it obviously you cannot work now. And it only took a little while to figure out that I had to have it replaced. It was so bad. So, that adds to the frustration because it feels worse that I was used and that they didn't even get much out of it. Like we ran a few more that night, or even if it had been a lot more on a few nights, it's still, I mean, that's not really that big of an increase. So the whole rest of my life has to be being disabled and unable. Like when we need to move furniture, I basically don't count as a worker. When somebody else needs to do something, I basically don't count as an able-bodied, you know, full-grown man. It makes you feel like you are less than, because you are. And I mean, I guess there's accepting it, which on most days I have accepted it, but it's just another, I mean, you know, I don't know. It's the shame is so rolled up into, it rolls everything up into a one-word description. And I am, you know, I am trying to do service in my church in the ways that I can. I really, the most of my shame, almost all self-hatred, shame, call it whatever, comes from not being outgoing. It comes from a feeling that I should be like I see so many other people be, and like be on Facebook posting stuff and commenting on things and calling people and going out and doing stuff. And like, I don't have that kind of, I want to do it. I want to socialize with people. I want to be a person that is thought of to care about people, because I do care about people. I just don't, it's a, you wouldn't want to be around me, so I'm not going to interact with you, because it will just, the more of me that you get to know, the more of a burden I'll be. That's how it feels. And so it's like the only thing worse than somebody getting to know me is somebody getting to know me. And I don't know how that part is going to change. I do have some faith that it is going to get better. And to hear my wife talk about it, I'm doing great. Like, I'm doing she'll list a bunch of stuff, and they're not wrong things. But it feels like, you know, if it still feels like there's this other, like, fact that nobody knows about me. And that fact is that I suck. And if everybody got to know me, then they would know that I suck. Really, last night, part of why I got in my head was our pastor started talking about, he said that the best actors he's ever seen aren't in the movies, but they're sitting on pews, coming in there and telling everybody everything's fine and having a mask on and refusing to let anybody actually know who they are or what they're going through. And it seemed like he was looking right at me, talking not necessarily to just me, but including me. Like, he knew as he was saying it that he was talking about me as well as other people. And it really got me, because I don't tell everybody everything's fine, because, you know, I want them to see me as a person who doesn't have problems. I don't know how anybody could see me as a person who doesn't have problems. I mean, but that's not the reason. The reason is because it's just kind of an overwhelming, all the time kind of feeling when I'm out with people I don't know that well. It's a feeling of needing to isolate, because I am like this toxic black ball of whatever. And the closer you get to me, the more it will infect you. I mean, that's how it feels. I don't know exactly what I think it actually is, but it is something along the lines of, my burdens, my burdens don't need to be somebody else's burdens just because they get to know me. Sorry, having trouble with this frickin' gimbal. I really only have one hand I can hold it with to hold it out far enough, apparently. I thought that was not like that, honestly. But so, it's a very it's a very it's a very frustrating and difficult situation that seems like the only possible way that it's going to heal all the way or get better enough that it feels like it's better is going to be with the help of God. And I mean, really, God is everything. So, it will be God. It won't be because I miraculously found a way and I figured it out and now I cannot be that way anymore. It will be because I submitted to reading the Bible like frequently every day for a long time and continued trying to be different, and little by little notice that it's getting better. I mean, that's what has happened with other things. In a way, this is kind of my worst thing because, it kind of is pride, but it's pride in the negative way. It's bad pride. Like, it's not that I feel awesome, but I still think that I own who I am. And I'm trying to realize what the Bible and, Christ teaches us, that God made me, and then God had me go through all of everything I've been through to be who I am now. And sometimes I kind of realize that, and it's kind of a powerful feeling. I very much hope that I am able to get me out of it and realize and remember that it is what it actually is, that each of us go through what we go through to be what God wants us to be and do what God wants us to do. And for me, that looks like probably ministering to people with religious trauma that are neurodivergent, something like that. People that are kind of against being a Christian. Basically, people like I was up until a year or two, and then more precisely, the last 5 or 6 months. Because I had all the, I was jealous of Christians. I wanted to be I wish I could be a Christian, but I knew I couldn't be, because I could never be like ignorant enough to say that, Jesus was the Son of God and, fed 5,000 people and, all of the things that I now believe are true. And it was the reason I was jealous of it was because they call it opiate of the masses for a reason. It does give comfort. It's comforting to not feel like it's all just random chance that we're here, what happens, how things are, what things are, all of it is just literally just, enough things bumped into each other particle wise, and here we are. And that when we die, it actually will matter how we lived, and that's not all there is. And so many things like that I was very jealous of, but I knew I could never be, because I could never be. I had already become unignorant. I had already learned that all of that stuff I just said is how it was, and there's no way to go back once you know there's no God and there's no chance. And I thought there was some kind of creator. I was an agnostic. I wasn't an atheist. So I didn't think there was no God. I just did not think that the Christian God was real, that there were, there was some kind of God or gods, creators, I don't know. And I thought, it's awesome that happened, that they created everything and us, etc. But I'm a scientist more or less. My education was for math, physics, and economics. Logical deduction of how things work, and patterns and formulas, and it's a very black and white way of looking at things. And ironically, I came to believe in a God through science because of all the stuff I learned, quantum mechanics and physics, everything I learned in physics. It's so beautiful and precise and improbable and all of that stuff that, that it felt like it had to be created, that it couldn't possibly have just been by chance, because it's too complicated but too simple. And that we exist in a dimension, or however you want to say it, but that there is much more. There are other dimensions, and there are things we can't see happening at the same place that we are, and other places. There could be something on the other side of our universe connected to right here through some other dimension very easily, because we don't know. It could be anything. Anything you could come up with could be possible, because we don't know. And while quantum mechanics and modern physics and all that stuff has made some amazing discoveries and all that, the interior of the smallest piece of matter that we know of is just still we still don't. Why is it the way that it is? And we probably won't ever have scientific proof that we know what that is. And I'm hoping that, if people like me get recommended a video like this, if you're like me, then it's kind of going around topics and just kind of meandering around won't be something that you don't like. Most people probably, that would not be ideal. I'm hoping that I can keep doing these videos the way that I do them, which is to mentally prepare and, be aware enough about what I'm talking about, whether I have to do research or not, to just kind of hit record and start talking about it. I hope that I start being successful doing it this way, because I can definitely do it this way. I have tried in the past to be a certain way that's not this way, whether it was shooting certain kinds of videos and then editing them like a lot more in certain ways. I hope that me as a early young Christian who basically fought Christianity my whole life, being Christian adjacent but refusing to believe and having tons of reasons that I was right, that they were wrong. And recently seeing what God was able to do for, it's hard. I don't want to go into too many details, but I saw things that I thought couldn't be done. So I was already going to church. I was already trying to believe. And then I saw these things, and as I was still going, I started connecting to certain things. And then it started happening like almost every time. Then I started really looking forward to going. Then there were just a few times in a row that were really moving, and then I asked, God, Jesus, to save me, and I'm now saved. And I'm not like, I don't know, I still don't even, I guess it's evangelical. That's the problem. That's the thing that so many people just have an initial immediate bad reaction to, like nationalism, any of the extreme stuff. I'm not any of that. I'm just a person who found, the creator, the one true living God. I mean, there's a lot of ways to say it, but I was fortunate enough to be shown proof that he existed. And so now, because I was shown proof, now I believe. And I'm pretty young, but I'm pretty intent. And I'm trying to transform and change myself as fast as possible. It'll be on God's time. I don't know. I don't think I came up with it, but God's time, not mine, is a mantra that I use when I am needing things to happen faster. I came up with, before I was actually saved or born again, whichever you want to call it. But before that happened, I, as just a neurodivergent creating content, came up with an acronym called GAFHO, for gratitude, acceptance, faith, and help others. And now that I am a Christian, I still use that because it's perfect. I thought it was perfect when I came up with it, and I still think it's perfect for anybody. Because you get to the help others part, and it's not so much to just stop thinking about yourself, but that's part of it. It's to realize that your thinking about yourself is how and why you are not happy. So if you think about somebody else and how you can make them feel better, then in that process of doing that, you become, definitely less miserable. But usually it's like a complete change in the other direction. I hope Mark De Jesus is a guy that I've been watching a lot recently, YouTube. He has kind of more in-depth, emotional, Christian type content, and it's definitely biblical, but it's not, it's hard to describe, but it's more deep emotional, personal, like struggling with this, and then biblical assistance, as well as kind of modern psychology type assistance, analysis, whatever. Manifestation is something that you hear a lot of bad about in Christian type content. And I realized the other day I came across a verse that it said, pray for the thing you want, and then realize that you already have received it. And I was like, wow, that sounds very much like manifesting, decide that something is true and actually feel like it's true, which is hard to do when it's not true. And it will become true. Either by you realizing that it was really something else you wanted, or because you become that person, and that person has things like that happen to or for them or whatever, and so those things happen. It's funny because to me, Christianity seems like it, you think about tarot cards and psychics. Some of these things are frowned upon in Christianity because they are attempting to, I'm not exactly sure how, but it's supernatural, things that, whether they're real, I don't know anything about that. But to me, Christianity seems like it is one of those. And what I mean by that is it has this crazy power that you can't really explain or understand. The thing about Christianity is you can explain and understand it. It's actually really simple. I hear a lot that, people are converting to Christianity at a higher rate than ever before or something like that. I don't know if that's true. But even if it's not at the highest rate ever, if it's substantial, I would think that it's because of that reason, that it, it gives, it's, a lot of people look at it from the negative point of view. If you can just look at it from the point of view of neutral, it's one of those, it's a pretty amazing thing. I wasn't going to make just Christian content, I was going to make things while being a Christian and that mattering to me. But such that a non-believer could watch my videos and maybe not even realize that I was, saying Christian things or whatever. Not intentionally. I was just going to continue to basically be the way that I was and make things the way that I was. But the more that I am embracing this situation, God, Christ, which does still feel kind of weird to say, the more that I am embracing it, the more it feels like it's becoming all of me, and I'm not going to be able to pull any parts out that aren't Christian, if that makes any sense. So I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to be making, going forward. I really very badly hope that something that I talk about helps you. And like I usually say, if you are watching this video now, you are my hero, literally, because that means you watch the whole thing. And that doesn't happen very often with me. And, I don't know if that's because the algorithm just doesn't get it to the right people, or if I'm just too boring, or if I haven't developed a certain kind of, way of talking, or I don't really know. But I am going to drop it here, as I usually, I'm not sure if I mean microphone, or I think when I started saying that, I just meant the video, drop it. But regardless, this one's gotten way longer than I meant for it to. But I hope it helps somebody. I hope it helps you. And until next time, this side or the other.